Yeah, man. All right. Damn, it's hot in the sun. So, yeah, I don't really know what this is yet. We call it mental freestyling, philosophizing, maybe. I don't know. But kind of just want to I guess where this came from is journaling, but in a different way. I do like journaling. I like the art of writing, but it does hurt my hand. And not all the time do I have my journals with me. So I'm trying to get into the habit more of writing down or documenting these streams of consciousness that I get, whether that be channeling or downloads or whatever you want to call it. It's just getting them down, and kind of putting them somewhere so that I can go back to them. So right now they just exist in my mind, in my memory, which hasn't been too bad. I've actually been able to call on any of the things that I download pretty vividly, which is dope, which is a lot better than who I used to be. I would just consign the information to be gone. But so now, yeah, I'm able to access that shit. So it's a lot better. It's gotten a lot better. But in case I can't, there are times where it's hazy, so I just kind of want to have them here, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. I'm thinking about maybe transcribing it onto a document form, printing it out in paper, that way I can have it as a book, or some type of journal, whatever, it'll be typed out, so it'll lose a bit of the soul, but the thoughts and the words are still coming from me. So I don't know, we'll see how it goes. Just want to try different things to kind of see what feels right, and also what's been coming on my feed a little bit more is people who just average regular people like us, like me, that are just spiritually inclined and feel more. I feel like they're a bit more empaths, and they're able to talk to the people and connect with them. I've been getting some really dope ones that speak to me, just random people. I'm not that. I'm not saying this will be that. This is more just to get my ideas out. Especially this first one, it's nothing along the lines of that spiritual aspect. But yeah, that's been popping up on my feed more and just more into my awareness. And so another thing that's in my awareness right now is really me traveling, leaving Canada, leaving the continent of North America. And I feel wanting to document the travels, or at least if not everything be moving around, maybe summaries of the travels of the days and shit like that. So this might be the format for it. So I kind of just want to get my mind accustomed to it. Kind of just want to get the notion and the fear out. The notion of doing this more and the fear of doing this, of being one of those people that talk to the camera, which has always been super fucking weird to me. It's always been uncomfortable, but at the same time, I do like to throw myself in uncomfortable situations because that discomfort means growth for me. So I'm trying to get used to it more, and it's interesting because I talk to myself all the time. I think to myself all the time, constantly. I live alone. I'm a very nomadic and solo person. So I sit with my thoughts all the time. So to say them is not irregular for me. It's not abnormal. To record them is. So that's why it's kind of, I don't know. There's just a barrier. There's resistance there, and I want to quell that resistance because it may open up some other avenues and opportunities and aspects, more of the unknown that I'm just not super used to. So yeah, it's kind of what's that? Oh, frog tea. Hold up. So yeah, it's just a bit more of what this is, what I want this to be. I don't even know what I want it to be honest. I'm just trying to ting. We'll see what I want. Maybe I'll see this on YouTube. Maybe you won't. Maybe it'll be just for me. I don't know. But this first one though, I don't know. I don't want to say what it is, but what I want to start with is Dune. Okay, so I love Dune. I'll probably venture off into a bunch of other shit too. Damn, it's hot in the sun. I kind of wish I brought shorts. It's alright, we got some clouds. But yeah, I want to talk about Dune because I currently don't have anybody. Okay. I currently don't have anybody in my life that loves and appreciates Dune the way I do. Not just the movies, but the books specifically, or like the universe of Dune. And so I have nobody to theorize with, no one to theory craft with, no one to talk to, bounce ideas off of. I could go online and like get into the Reddit threads or the Substacks and all that kind of shit. But I don't know. I don't know if that's for me yet. It's just more screen time and shit. Although like there are some YouTube videos that I see people talking about it, and like my personal issue with that, not with them, is that if I do it for me, I want to do it on the same level that they do, So like there's a lot of editing, they get a lot of pictures and stuff, and like that's just more time. And I feel like fuck. I'm not against it. There's so much that I want to do, and like as a creative outlet, seeing how much work that is will stop me from consistently doing that, keeping it sustainable. And that's the thing. It's a great idea, and I'm sure it can make it look dope, but is it sustainable? Am I gonna want to do that every single time, like edit a video and all that kind of stuff, just to get some random thoughts out, And like as much as I would love to, the reality is it probably won't, or it might deter me from going that route. So I'm just like, fuck it, bro, let's just do the thing and like build on this shit later, you know what I mean, if I feel inclined to or not. So anyway, Dune. I fucking love Dune, man, especially right now. I think at this time and point in my life, it's really resonating with me. And I used to kick myself at like, damn, I wish I got on this sooner, because like Dune's from the 60s, right? Frank Herbert made this in I think 63 or 65 or some shit. So like I could have grown up with it, being a guy that loves sci-fi, that loves the cosmos, that loves sciences, physics, quantum physics, botany, biology, chemistry, all this shit, whatever, man, you name it, I fuck with it. I thought I would, had been onto it from earlier. Like, I love Star Trek and Star Wars. How did I miss Dune? I guess because there were no mediums for kids. It was the novels. There weren't like cartoons or like comic books or anything like that. So it was very adult. It's a very adult story, which is amazing. But at the same time, it's like, it all happens, for the reason that you put all of it. So I think like for me, I needed to be at this level of my spiritual practice to really get all of it, to get as much as I'm getting out of it. I think I needed to be now. I needed to wait a bit. So the first thing I want to talk about is a theory that I have around the separation of universes, right? I'll go into other shit too, but this was the idea that prompted this whole thing of like, because I have nobody to talk to about this. And so the universes that I see, there's branches of them, right? Like every cinematic universe has that. Like there's the DC verse, where it's like they have the cartoons, and then they have the Zack Snyder, and they have all the ones that came before, and like we got to see in like the Flash, how they connected some of these universes with like Keaton's Batman and all that kind of stuff. Spider-Man, the same thing, so I'm talking about it from that lens, that perspective. Specifically, right now I'm playing the game Dune Awakening, the sandbox crafting game that's super dope. Has a lot of potential, can be a lot better. So with that, what they had said was they altered the universe. They didn't alter the universe. What they did is the defining moment of when Jessica decides to have a boy for Leto the First, she doesn't. She listens to the Bene Gesserit and has a girl. And all the events that precipitate from that is Dune Awakening. That's the universe that Dune Awakening lives in, which is so dope. I think that's such a great way of like getting us in the universe without altering it too much, so that the fan people don't go crazy and be upset, so I love that. I think that's such a great idea. And then I look at Denis Villeneuve, if I'm saying his name correctly, his branch, so his universe. So that's specifically what my theory is on. So there's also the David Lynch version, that's another universe, and then there's also the mini-series, that's another universe. So I haven't connected all of like those two specifically to this, but if we're going with the book universe, so in the book, Paul specifically mentions that he sees two paths. At the time, I think he's either in the tent with Jessica, or this is after he takes the water of life. I forgot which point. But he sees two paths. One path, he says, disgusts him. And like, he can't look at it. It's sickening. And he says in that path, he says to the Baron, hello, grandfather. That's the part I want to talk about. That's the path that he avoids. And then there's another path that is the jihad. And that's the path that he does want to avoid, but he actually assumes control of because he thinks he can navigate that path to avoid the jihad, which ultimately we know he doesn't be able to do that. But it's the other path that I want to talk about. The jihad path is the path that we see him take in the books, right? That's obviously where he goes and what ends up happening. But the other path, we only get those brief words. That's it. He says it's sickening and like it disturbs him so much that he can't look at it. And I guess over time that like the pathways evolve and merge, and that's a whole other thing that I'll get into of like the time in the future always being in motion. But that universe, that path where he says hello grandfather, that he avoids, that's the path that we see in the movies. That's what I find super interesting, because we know Paul kills Baron Vladimir Harkonnen in the movies, and he says hello grandfather before he sticks him with his crysknife. So I see the cinematic universe as Paul taking that path. You know, instead of avoiding it, he goes that path. So I have theory crafting now. I'm like, I hope Denis Villeneuve sees that and like chose that specifically to kind of show us that path, you know, differ from the universe that we know, which is the book universe, and go down a different way, so that opens up Dune Messiah to be something completely different that like maybe we're not really catching, you know. And by the end of Dune Part 2, we can kind of see that route happening, where Chani's upset and leaves and all that kind of stuff, which we know is not the book, right? I should have said earlier, spoiler alert, so I'll probably put something up of like big spoilers, or maybe I'll just do that now. Big spoiler alert for what's about to come. I'll chop this up and put it beforehand. Spoiler alert, all that kind of shit. If you don't know about the books, the movies, this is your spoiler alert. So yeah, anyway, getting back to it now. So yeah, I think that's the path that we see, or we will see in the movies, which kind of excites me. So that's just a theory that I had, and like I really have nobody to share it with. So I'm like, fuck, how can I talk to about this shit, yo? So I'm like, alright, let me just record it and maybe put it up on YouTube or some shit. Yeah, I don't know, let me know what you think. I think that would be really cool to see. Another, like, just in like, now just moving off of the theory and like just my connection with Dune itself, it's been really fucking inspiring, yo. It's been making a lot of sense to me, and it's like I'm resonating a lot with Paul, so much so with Paul Atreides, Paul Muad'Dib, and specifically now, like I feel like I'm able to see the paths before me, the myriad of paths and the threads of history. Whenever I think about the choices I have, the free will that is at my fingertips, specifically recently, where I was able to quell some fears that I had. I'll get into that in a bit, I guess, to kind of give you the context. But since doing that, my awareness has opened up where I can literally see the paths, and I can see where I'm going through all of them. Like, not fully, not every step, but like blotches, you know? But like, I see that they all lead to joy and happiness. And it's relieving, because it's like any path I take is going to be that leads to that joy and happiness. So it's like, really, which one do I want, you know? Excuse me. So that's really been helping me. So like the books have really been helping me, and for transparency, I'm an audio guy, so I love to listen to the books, and I've listened to them quite a bit. I haven't listened to all 6. I'm only doing Frank Herbert's. I'm not doing his sons, who I'm just talking about at least. I haven't listened to any of his son's stuff. I haven't listened to all 6 of Frank Herbert's. I have Chapter House Dune left. I did up to book 5, and I realized that I need some time because book 5 is completely different. The last 2 are completely different from 1 to 4. At least 1 to 4 is like characters that we know and understand. There's a big time jump in 4. But 1 and 4 are my favorites. And God Emperor of Dune, fucking amazing. I love Leto Atreides II and his proclamations, and that really helped me a lot. And so the books now, I've listened to 1 to 5. I re-listened to 1. I restarted. So maybe like a month ago, I started listening to 1 again. Just finished 1. I just actually finished 2. I should say just, meaning like a couple days ago. I finished 2 again. I'm sick. I did 2 twice. So I listened to it 3 times. So I finished listening to Dune Messiah. Then I re-listened to it again. I love to do that because I miss things. I miss out on things that I don't hear the first time, or I now hear in a different light and can visualize in a different way. Since going through like my life experience, I'm equating it to different things, so I pick up on different shit. But I would always watch reviews and stuff of people like reviewing the books, and a lot of people would say that Dune Messiah was their favorite, and it didn't stand out to me the first time I listened to it. So I'm like, okay, I need to like take it in again because I want to appreciate what people are talking about, you know. And then upon listening to it the second time, it still was missing me. But upon listening to it the third time, that's when it started to hit. That's when I started to like, okay, I do start to see. We really do get to see Paul in the throes of like ruling the Empire, you know, like, and obviously Dune 1, he's becoming, you know. Now we've seen him become. We know who he is now. He knows who he is now. And we start to see like the frustration, the annoyances he has with certain things and characters, like at the beginning when he tells what's his name, Cordoba, to do the like the morning rite, you know, the morning ritual to like talk to the people. And he's like, they're expecting you, and he's like, just put a turban over your face, man, like they're not gonna know at this distance. Like he's so annoyed with like having to do this stuff now. He's annoyed with like the power and belief that his Kizrat have over the people and shit. And I think Messiah is where he starts to realize that he's a prisoner in time. Whereas from when he first started to have these visions of the future, he thought he could create it. He thought he was creating them and controlling them, until he realized that it was controlling him, you know. The jihad used him. And I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier about future always being in motion. Yoda says the same thing from Star Wars. We say like the future is always in motion, and we know from quantum physics that is literally how it works. Me sitting here right now, my future looks like a specific thing. Say it's, you know, whatever, running a successful company. By me just sitting here, the second I get up and walk and move, that future looks different. Because the future is always in motion, and us moving creates that future, alters that future. So like, it's so dope how from 63, or whenever Dune Messiah was written, like that was his thought then. I don't know if that was rooted in some studies that he learned from, because I'm sure, I know Einstein has said this from theory of relativity from a long time ago, but I don't know how much of that he pulled. But like coming more now to modern science, modern physics, and understanding that, and that being a bit more widespread and known, is like, it really stands out to me as like, damn, this book was like so prolific, you know, so ahead of its time. And like, I love the union and the union of spirituality and science and stuff like that. So Paul, when he was in the tent and he sees the visions of like the jihad, you know, people chanting his name, the war, the billions of dead, the famine that follows, and he thinks, I'll steer away from that, like I'll take control, but nobody's gonna know that it's to avoid the jihad. He'd say that so often. But little did he know that because his prescience was so, it was limited before he took the water of life, he could only see splotches of the future. He didn't know with each step how much further he was walking towards the jihad, walking towards the future he was trying to avoid at all costs. So I find that interesting, and I also would love to know more about the other future that he saw, the Hello Grandfather one. Like how sickening was it? That's so interesting to me that we only get those few words and that's it. Like I really would love to know, like, how bad was it? If the jihad, the billions dead that he saw, was the lighter approach, what was the other one? I mean, ultimately it's human extinction, like that's eventually the golden path that he sees, that Leto the Second, really Leto the Third, but Leto the Second takes up the mantle of. But like, was it that? Like, yeah, I guess it was, but I don't know, who knows? Like, that's what I would just love to pick Frank Herbert's brain on, to be like, what was that? And so yeah, like the future always being in motion, I think is such an interesting concept. Because even when I go back into myself and I look at the myriad of paths that lay before me, by the use of free will and me being able to like choose whichever way I want to go, how will those futures look differently? Because again, me seeing these futures is me sitting here right now in Toronto with this beautiful sun. I gotta turn the camera so you can see like what I'm seeing. This beautiful, beautiful skyline in this park that I love to come to. Like this calm, grounding presence that I'm in right now, my future is going to be different from what I can see, versus the movement that I have to take, the movement through space-time that I have to take to achieve that future. What will change? How will that future change and defer and alter? It's an amorphous thing right now. So it's just interesting to think, like, where will it go? What will happen to it? How much will it change? As much as Paul saw the jihad and he wasn't able to avoid it, like, will I be able to avoid some of the pitfalls that I am weary of in the future, or will I fall towards them? Is the thought of them why I will move towards them? Is the thought of them the creation of them? Which, again, we do know through Joe Dispenza, through my studying of Joe Dispenza, is that, our thoughts create the reality that we have. Your personality dictates your personal reality. So how much of these thoughts am I creating? How much of the future, when Joe Dispenza talks about creating that future and what that looks like, my thoughts control that. So do I keep out any possible negative thoughts, or not necessarily embrace them, but allow them to exist, which is where I'm at now, is that I don't want to stifle any of these thoughts, these emotions that I feel. It's not about stifling, it's about living with them. They're a part of me, they're a part of us, so they need to exist, they need to be. But it's about the mastery of them, less about control and more about mastery and existing with them, because they serve purpose, they serve use. They allow me to think in different states of being. They allow me to understand the reactions of other people when they are in those states of being. So like, they're useful. It's just about us finding the use for them. And I'll touch quickly on the difference between mastery and control. The analogy I use, I'm big on analogies, is like, we control a car, right? We drive a car, we control the car. If that car breaks down, we don't have the understanding of the car to fix what's wrong so that we can go back to controlling it. Whereas a master of the car would be a mechanic. Mechanic can control the car, can drive it, and if something goes wrong under the hood, it can also fix whatever is wrong with it so that it can get it back to driving, it can get back to control. So like, that's the difference in my mind of mastery and control, and that's why I'm very deliberate with the words mastery over control. Because yeah, we want to be the mechanics of our mind. We want to be able to fix what's wrong. Not even fix is the wrong word, but just equating it to the mechanic. We want to be able to like just understand what's going on so that we can steer it back, we can pull it back, and we can understand, okay, I'm upset right now, I'm not going to let that rule me into making this decision. I'm gonna allow it to exist, understand why I'm upset. Okay, cool. Now let me bring it back to the breath. Let me bring it back to equanimity and operate from there. That's the difference between mastery and control. So when I teach throughout my practice and whatnot, I emphasize mastery over control. We master our mind by way of the breath, is what I say a lot. So yeah, man. I forgot how I got here from Dune, but yeah, no, I want to pull it back to Dune. And just like how much that book is just like, man, it's so beautiful. So like now I'm on Children of Dune, moving my way back up to God Emperor of Dune. But just staying with Dune Messiah for a bit and like developing my appreciation for that and just getting to see where Paul, like that book is a bit slower, but and I think for me I always love an origin story. That's like my favorite thing. It's like how do these heroes start, And so like Dune 1 is my favorite, I'd say. Or I don't know. 4 might be my favorite too. They're kind of neck and neck. But Messiah, I do have a new appreciation for. And again, it is like seeing him now became, like he has now became who he's going to be. And him understanding the prison that he's now actually in with prescience, and he says that, like, people see prescience as a gift, like it's a curse. Like, now I'm stuck in this path that I can't alter, I can't change. And that happens even more so after the stone burner incident. He goes blind. In order for him to have his vision, he has to stay on the path that he sees. That's allowing him to see physically, If he strays from that, that's where the darkness is. And what's interesting too, another theory I'm wondering is the moment where there's a fork in the road after Chaney dies, and he's going through his visions and he's remembering how things are happening in his vision, and he sees the dark spot, and he tells himself not much longer to go now, just in a bit it's going to be dark. So it's interesting because I'm wondering if he chose like that darkness. I wonder, was it the grief that he was feeling for Chaney that he decided to fall into? And he does mention that he slips a little bit, and he would have fallen into it if Duncan Idaho hadn't pulled him out. He pulled him out by saying his name and him coming back out of it. But he also sees it and does purposely move towards it. And I wonder if he saw that in his prescience. And I wonder, was that, like, did he always know that grief was coming? I know he knew Chaney was going to die, and he was prolonging it via Irulan putting the contraceptive in her food. But the way he kind of falls into him losing his prescience, him losing his sight, him almost willingly giving it up, like, I wonder if he had the choice, like, did he see the choice was there to give it up? And he chose to give in to the grief, and that's what stopped his prescience. Or I also wonder if the prescience could only exist in one of them. And since Leto II was now born, and Leto II is prescient, that's why Paul couldn't see him. He only saw Ganima. He didn't know he was going to have twins. Is it because, only one prescient being can exist? And then thinking that route makes me think, I wonder if I see maybe prescience / time as a character in the story, as a whole entity in the story, that it's using Paul as a puppet to move through. I don't know what its end game is. Maybe its end game is the prolonging of humanity. I don't know. But did prescience disregard Paul now because it had Leto II? And we already know that Paul was already weary on the golden path. He didn't want the golden path. He saw it And like he would even whisper to himself like, what if me and Cheney just left right now, just went to the desert, just us two? Like he was already thinking to leave. He was kind of manifesting it, you know. He wanted to go and not have to be a part of this anymore. And he knew how powerless he was to the jihad. People would be like, oh, but you're in control, you can just say anything. And it's like, how? Like my orders aren't going to stop the jihad no matter how much I want to. Even if I die right now, I'll just be a martyr, and the jihad will continue in my name. If I leave, me and Cheney leave right now, it will still continue in my name. Like there won't be any way for me to stop this thing that I wanted to avoid at all costs. So like going back to the theory now, this new theory of like prescience being the entity itself that is choosing, you know. And because he was weary of the golden path, is it like, okay, this guy doesn't want it, cool, maybe it'll be stronger in Leto, and so let me disregard Paul and let me move to Leto. Maybe I can only exist in one being at one time in the strength that I need it to be, so that I can make this thing happen, you know, whatever future can make it happen. Like I don't know, I'm just seeing prescience or time itself as a character, as an entity, and like actually throwing Paul away because he fulfilled the duties. It did what it needed to do. He did what he needed to do, so that now Leto can come in and take over and do what he needs to do now to get humanity on the track. So I don't know, just a new theory. I forgot my water, yo. I'm cheesed. I be talking so much now. I don't have no goddamn water. I bring no fruit, no nothing. Jeez, now, damn. Anyway, hands are getting parched. So yeah, man, I don't know. That's another thought, man. That was just a cool thing that I've been thinking. We're at 31 right now. That's crazy. Kind of brick at the same time. I don't know. Where's the sun at? Whatever. Anyway. So yeah, man. That's some of the thought process around Dune. Around some of Dune, at least. And like just seeing how much he had to avoid, how many plots he had to avoid, you know, it's crazy. And it's interesting that like it took them 12 years to develop this plot. I wonder if there were any plots against him before that. You know, like he was ruling for 12 years by Dune Messiah. So like, was that the only one? Like, or do we just come in and see like, because it was the end of his reign, is that when we come and see? I don't know why I'm wearing these actually. I always think about that too, like when we watch stuff in movies and TV shows and shit, it's like, why do we get to see this moment? But usually it's because the moments are huge, you know? So it's like it wants to show us that time. So like this is obviously the end of Muad'Dib's reign. So that's what they want to show us. So the other plots that happened were less important because it wasn't the end. It's kind of like, oh man, like moving to Leto now. Maybe I'll come back when I finish God Emperor, but just what's in my remembrance now is interesting. Actually, just where I'm at in Children of Dune is pretty dope too. Of like seeing how it unfolds for Leto II and Ghanima. Because like they were aware of like, okay, to not, oh yeah, I want to talk about that too, not let abomination happen to them. Like they were studying it and they were like, okay, Aaliyah is taking the spice trans, you know, so let's avoid the spice trans so we don't, like abomination won't happen to us. But for the prescience to just happened to Leto, even without it. It's just an Atreides trait. Like, it happens to them at some point in their time, whether they're like they were pre-born, but it didn't matter. Paul wasn't pre-born, but he would still have visions even prior to him touching spice. You know, when the Reverend Mother Guy and Helen Mohayim came, he dreamt her coming before she actually came, you know? So prescience isn't a Atreides trait. And it's interesting because I think it might only be in the males. Because now, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Aaliyah has prescience. Or maybe she does, but she lost it after Chaney died. I don't know, there was something in the book that said that. I just was a bit confused on that. Like, she didn't have a vision, not since Chaney died, they said. So, like, was she prescient too? I don't know. Because Ganima isn't prescient. But then, what's her name, is Siona. I think Siona is prescient. I don't remember. I'll find out in God Emperor of Dune when I re-listen to that. But anyway, it was just interesting that even though they were trying to avoid it, the prescient traits still came out in Leto. And then eventually they force him to take the shit, even though I'm not there yet again in my re-listen. But it was just interesting that, like, he started to see the prescience come back. He was starting to have the visions. And then they did the, what do they call it? The parent consciousness game, the parent game, something like that, where they brought back both Paul and Chaney and were them. That was super interesting that I missed the first listen. That Chaney almost didn't let go. She almost took over Ganima. And she was still existing in her for hours. And Leto had to, like, calm her and talk her down and kind of, like, plead with her to, like, let Ganima go. What did he say? Like, I would despise you or something like that. And, like, Muad'Dib had to come out, Paul had to come out and be like, I would. Holy shit, that was so awesome. Like, I would despise you if you did this. And he's like, yeah, he would just leave you. He would just go to the desert again. Wow. Like, literally for hours, they had to wait for her to leave. Meanwhile, Paul was like, the thought of it, Paul was so appalled by. When Leto was like, if any of the other consciousnesses do try to take over, I'll just be you. He's like, no, not that. And boom, releases his hold, releases the awareness, the consciousness game. And they said it took a lot of will. And so, like, it releases that and then dissipates back. That's how against he was of his kids becoming abomination. And it's interesting that it was different for Chaney. You know? She saw the allure of it. She was like, oh, it's so easy. Like, it's stupidly easy to just stay here and just remain conscious. So that's super interesting. I love Chaney. I love Book Chaney. She was so wise and calm and peaceful. Belly's rumbling a bit still. Now the sun's out. Now I'm mad hot. God damn. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna end here and come back, because I think I might need to hit the bathroom real quick. But yeah, we'll see.